So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Karen Huang, and I'm your collegiate member at large. Todd Harris from Gulf Coast Province is also on this call. And tonight we're going to talk to you a little bit about planning a province assembly. And before we begin, I want to give a huge shout out to Jonathan Bradford for helping with the slides. We appreciate your help so much, Jonathan. And a lot of this information came from the Province Assembly Planning Guide in addition to our own personal experiences. So be sure to check it out. The Province Assembly Planning Guide should be available to everyone as a handout via GoToWebinar, and it will be uploaded to the international website later this week. And before we begin, I just want to initiate a poll here and ask everyone, how many province assembly meetings have you attended, just to kind of see where we're all at here. So I'm launching the poll now, and I'm just going to wait a little while to see how everyone responds. Okay, great. So it looks like about 33% everyone here has been to 1 to 2 provinces, 80% 0, 27% 3 to 4, and 20% 5 or more provinces. So everyone is completely new to idea meeting, which is pretty good. But for those who haven't been before, we will go over some of the finer details. And just a little bit about us, just so you know who is talking to you. Todd Harris was the co-chair for the Gulf Coast Province meeting this past winter in January 2016 in Oxford, Mississippi. He has attended 2 province meetings in the past. And me, I'm Karen. I was co-chair for the Mountain East Province Fall Assembly in 2014 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I've attended 15 province meetings thus far. And then next, I just wanted to say that this, as a sort of disclaimer, this is from a collegiate perspective. Todd and I don't claim to know everything there is to know about province planning, and if you're an older, more experienced brother, I know we have a few grads on this webinar. We would definitely welcome any comments or suggestions. And also, this presentation is meant as a broad overview of province planning, and it's very important to note that each province has different traditions and different agendas, and therefore the executive committee of that province should always be consulted if you have questions about the finer details of planning your province meeting. All right, next we'll have Todd take it away. Todd?
Hey everyone. So congrats. If you're on this webinar, you're probably about to start planning a assembly, or in the future you're going to be doing it. You're embarking on a task that is considered to most to be a little how can I say, intimidating, but this webinar is to make sure you work out the kinks. Remember that things need to be taken a little bit at a time over a long period of time, and just realize that in the end this is going to be a wonderful experience that you'll be able to remember and look back, and after it's all said and done, you'll get to reap in the glory of being able to say you have created a province assembly that everybody enjoyed. So moving on, the purpose of this, we're going to talk about Kappa Province Assembly. What is it all about? What are we supposed to gain as the end goal for a province assembly? State the importance of the committees and how each one has specific responsibilities that they need to be aware of and commit to. Of course, recall the risk management and social media policies, and describe a budget on province meetings, because it's very different between the provinces on how they budget things.
Okay, and next, before we delve into the whole planning a province meeting thing, I want to see what you guys think. So what do you think the purpose of a province meeting is? Why are we even putting in so much work and effort and time to hold these? So feel free to respond. I'm looking for answers right now. Okay, so I have to make sure it's safe and effective, lots of fun. I have here for fellowship, brotherhood, to meet brothers from nearby chapters. Michael says to bring brothers together for fellowship and have opportunities to grow professionally. Great, so you're all absolutely right. Province meetings really bring people together. I think that there's so much opportunity for fellowship and developing and recognizing leaders. And it really exposes brothers to the larger value of Kappa Psi, because when you go to a province meeting, you really start to get how exactly large Kappa Psi is, and you start to understand the depth and the breadth of the scope of the brotherhood. And it really helps facilitate the sharing of chapter ideas, networking opportunities, lots of opportunities to be involved, especially on your province executive committees, and it really serves as a structural base that helps facilitate communication to and from chapters. Next, Todd will talk a little bit about being a co-chair.
Yep. So having the responsibility of being the co-chair for assembling a province meeting, it's, you know, the SATRAP or executive council for your province is putting a lot of weight on your shoulders. But as long as there's a good communication between your province executive council and the members of your chapter that are helping along with all these responsibilities, just making sure that the people that are supposed to be getting the information are getting it, and that in turn they turn around and can provide you with, you know, the outcomes that you're looking for. So make sure that you contact the SATRAP and, you know, the EC that's involved, and have a list of goals that you need to have, and sometimes they'll do a timeline of when things need to be finished by. Looking into your responsibility, you can't do this all on your own. Make sure you distribute and send out into subcommittees that they have ways to gauge how far ahead or behind that they are on providing things. Developing a budget is part of it. Usually a province will have a max goal or a max budget that they, you know, please don't go over, say, $80. Just make sure that you look into your SATRAP and see how it's been done for your province in the past, and try to stick to those guidelines. And then supervising all communication and activities that are going to be happening. You know, you want to be the point person between the subcommittees below that are creating all these events for you, and to the executive council on your province, to make sure that everything's lining up to their satisfaction. And next we will talk about the thing that I'm probably the worst at. Remember the saying that there is no I in team. This could not be more true for creating a smooth and effective and efficient province committee. The province typically, and of course I'm speaking on behalf of Gulf Coast Province, will set up a province assembly planning committee. This should comprise of people that are longtime brothers, those that have helped with the province already, province assembly already, and you really need to work with these people, grab knowledge and stuff that has worked out for the best, or some things that didn't work out, and communicate back and forth, trying to set up your province assembly as great as it can be. Emailing, communicating, you should be sending them out quick, and expect delays. You know, we're dealing with the collegiate members trying to do all this stuff, and we all know how busy we are. We all have different test schedules. We all have, you know, different things going on, events and whatnot. So if you're like me in the SEC at Ole Miss, the fall's pretty busy on the weekend. So, you know, when I was trying to get stuff done, I was sort of scheduling it around football time, but that's not for everybody. And I'll be the first to say that delegating is not my strongest trait. In fact, I will say it's nearly at the bottom of the list, but it's slowly rising. Create a team to help you at your chapter level. This will actually ensure that those that are involved, it'll be more of a lifelong experience, because how many people can say they've, you know, helped build a province assembly? I mean, that's few and far between, and they'll look back and say, you know, I'll be able to help people out further down the line. And some of the principles of delegating, you want to select the right person. You want to delegate the good and the bad things. They're, you know, making sure that your entertainment is all lined up might be a good thing for some people. But don't be the chair or co-chair that takes on all the unsavory things like budget and whatnot. Take the time you need. Make sure you set it up in advance. Allow for responses from who you delegate to, and don't try to transfer everything over at one time. Separate everything you have and delegate and conquer it all a little bit at a time. Look and request for specific results to happen. You know, you can't expect to give someone 3 months of time to finish a budget and then not hear anything about it until the last week. You know, that's usually you're typically setting up for failure. You want to make sure that there's certain steps and they're followed, and that certain deadlines are met to make sure that everything's on track, so when the province assembly all comes back together, you know, it works smoothly and peacefully. And, you know, just make sure that if you see someone falling behind on their duties that you've delegated to, make sure to try and lighten their load. There's definitely some people that are go-getters and are able to get things done at a faster pace. If they get done with their stuff they've been delegated, see if they'll help with the other person that's fallen behind. So remember, delegation is key.
Okay, and before we move on, it looks like we have a question from Angelique. Angelique, I'm going to unmute you so you can ask your question and everyone can hear you, okay?
I actually don't have a question. I guess my hand was raised instead of being lowered.
Okay, no, you're fine. All right, I'm going to mute you again. So next, we're going to talk about an extremely important part of province planning, which is setting the date, because if you don't have the date, you can't really do much else. So after the province co-chairs speak with the province e-board about possible dates, you definitely want to inform your school of pharmacy and let them know what's going on. And typically when you work out the dates, you want to look at a lot of different factors. So you want to look to see, is APHA MRM that weekend? Is ASHP having some sort of meeting that weekend? Is there homecoming going on or a big football game at your school? Because those factors can affect hotel availability and traffic and a whole million other different things. And next, I want to talk a little bit about the registration committee. So you will have to hold a budget meeting and determine how much you want to charge people for registration. And we will go into further detail on budgeting later on in this presentation. But registration costs, they usually average 60 to 80 for collegiates. For collegiates, I've seen them as low as $50 for and as high as $95. And these really do reflect the cost of the meeting. And you want to take into account, too, early registration and late registration. And late registration is typically 10 or so dollars more. And you also want to look to see, is the person registering a collegiate or a graduate? I think it's very common practice to charge graduates $10 more than collegiates because they're real people, so theoretically they have more money than us. And you also, when you start out registration, you want to figure out how you want to do it. So I think a lot of chapters and provinces use Google Forms. It's a very common practice. And you want to make sure you have an online payment method worked out. I've seen Venmo and PayPal used in the past. And with PayPal, you just want to be aware that they do charge a percentage of the registration fee, and it does take a couple days for you to be able to access your money. So you want to keep that in mind. I know when I planned the province meeting, something I did was I asked the webmaster of my province to set the registration website up on our province website, and I made a sort of stepwise process. So step 1, register at this Google form. Step 2, here are your payment options, PayPal or check. Choose one and send the check to this address. Step 3, hotel information. Here is the phone number of the hotel, the link for the website, the address. Here's a code for our group rate. And step 4, transportation. Where is the nearest airport? Do people need rides to and from the airport? And then next, when you do make these registration forms via Google Forms or whatever method you use, you want to collect certain pieces of information. So this is bare bones right here: name, email address, phone number, chapter province, banquet preference if applicable. Some provinces do choose to have plated banquets, so you want to give your guests a choice of chicken, fish, pork, whatever. And you also want to look at dietary restrictions. I have a brother in my chapter who's vegan, and I can't tell you how many times he's been to a province meeting and he couldn't eat anything for dinner. And you also want to see if the person is a collegiate or a graduate in order to charge them the correct registration rate. And something to note, province supervisors and assistant supervisors get their registration fees waived, so you want to make sure that you're aware of that. And also, some provinces do waive the registration fee for international executive committee members, and some don't. So you want to check with your province e-board, and you also want to check with your province ordinances. Next, Todd's going to talk a little bit about what goes in a registration packet. Todd, you still with us?
I say when I unmute myself, I'll be able to talk again. So registration packets, every time you sign up for, just something in general, like APHA, I enjoy getting the little registration bag that has all the little small items. It's always been something that's intrigued me and put a smile on my face. But there's certain things that you can find, city maps of your location, name badges, packet information like the agenda, what's going on this weekend. If they need any things like a wristband to be able to get into an event for free, or just adding some swag like pins and little knickknacks that might say, oh, I remember where I got this. I got this from this last province assembly. So city maps can typically be picked up at your local city visitor office. They might also have freebie items. Like we went and they decided that here you can have 200 free bags, so we didn't have to pay for that. Another thing that some people might have is t-shirts. I do want to put a disclaimer that t-shirts can be included or they can be done as an add-on item. I like the add-on item. We didn't do it for our province assembly, but looking back, I wish I'd have done that, because there are some people that just don't want the shirt. There are people that have been to, say, 15 province meetings recently, like Karen, and probably have enough T-shirts to fill, her dresser, someone else's dresser, and, many other people down the line. But if you do happen to make a shirt, make sure you have a deadline and cut them off ahead of time where the shirts can actually be made and show up at the assembly. For name badges, I can speak solely about this because I had the hardest time trying to figure out what to do with name badges. I wasted money on buying something from Amazon, got them, printed them out, and they just didn't look good. So I'm going to give you all a little, my methods of doing name badges. So I would actually go to Amazon and buy in bulk the name badge holders. Those can be fairly cheap, like $6 for 50 of them, but it's a lot better than, say, $25 for 50 of them that don't look as well. I'm speaking on behalf of the ones that were made by Avery. I just didn't like them. You can also purchase lanyards for cheap. I bought, I think, for $3 100 of them. So you got your name badge holders, and then you got your lanyards. I would actually download from Avery the software to print them. I used this and then developed my name badge. You can pull it from the web, the list that you have. If you use Google Forms, which I did, you can download in Excel and pull from Excel the names, what chapter they're from, if they had an officer position, and you can put that, incorporate it in the Avery software, and it'll post it on the name badge, and it'll do it, pretty efficiently. There were some things, if you have people that have longer names, you had to make sure, and you went through and you fixed those to where they'll actually fit on the name badge. But if you just print that and just put it on regular cardstock paper and just cut them, I thankfully got lucky and had a paper cutter or trimmer that I got from the school recently, and literally it took me, probably 15 minutes to print everything out, cut it, and then just start putting them in the name badges. And I think I showed you an example. That's Mallory White, the name badge that we had, and I thought they looked pretty well, especially since I think the whole thing cost me $22 total. I think it's a good idea. Pins, highlighters also can be added. If you can find a cheap one with like the province logo, I mean, that'll be pretty cool, especially if you can look down the line and feel like, where did I get this? And lo and behold, it just because you decided to throw in some extra sweet swag. Also think about what other assemblies in the past have done in your province. I think ours was in January, and I think this has been the year of the mugs. I think a lot of people have been doing mugs for their gift items. Try to see if you can not do the same things as everybody else has done in the past. So you want to, alter things up and make sure that yours was specific, and it'll just make yours more enjoyable to remember. Moving forward from registration packets, Karen? There we go.
All right, so next I'm just going to talk a little bit about fundraising. So that's something that's super important, obviously. So when you are facing a province meeting that you have to plan, you definitely want to plan ahead. Fundraising isn't something you can do secondhand or the night before, like, your schoolwork. So you want to look at sponsorships. Are there companies nearby, local businesses that will be willing to donate a specific item like breakfast or a CE? You want to tap into the network of Kappa Psi alumni that are in the area and see if they'd be willing to help out. And you also want to see if there's graduate chapters in the area that can help you out too. And then next, actually, Todd can speak a little bit more about this. Some universities actually have a person that can help you locate funds from other corporations. Can you speak on that, Todd?
Yeah. So at the University of Mississippi Ole Miss, we actually have someone that we can reach to in our school that deals with sponsorships for anybody that's affiliated with the school pharmacy. So, all we have to do is go to that person, and she'll go through her Rolodex and be like, okay, let me just put out some feelers to see if anybody's willing to, put in some money and just have their name, put somewhere on the program or something. And actually, to better to effectively do this, you can actually tell them, we need someone to sponsor a lunch. We want someone to sponsor the programs. Like, give specific details on what you want sponsored, because the people that are providing the money will want to know, okay, what is this actually going to? Don't just say an overall fund to help with the province assembly. No, you want to be like, I'm looking for a sponsor for someone to do the name tags. I mean, you're looking at something so small, but as long as they can say, oh, we helped with that province assembly's name tags, you'll be better off getting the funds than just saying, oh, can you just provide anything for, just a general fund for it. So make sure when you are talking to sponsors, be specific. Let them know that their name will be visible on being a sponsor for said event, meal, even sponsoring like a conference room. Sometimes it costs money to be at a venue. If someone can sponsor that, there's another way to go at it. What's up next? Hotel committee. All right. Hotels are tricky. Of course, the main thing is they need to be booked early. You're basing a lot of this information on booking rooms on past province assemblies. And it also depends on location. I know Gulf Coast had Nashville, and in Nashville we actually have 3 schools, if you count Psi as having a place to be there, right there. So you're going to expect that you probably won't need as many hotel rooms because you already have, a good amount of chapter people in the area. But then you got to think, what else could be going on in that city? I, being from Oxford, Mississippi, didn't have too much going on. I mean, we don't even have an airport to fly into, besides the local one. But the little things that you need to be looking out for. When you set up a hotel and you block off a certain amount of rooms, you want to make sure that when you do, if there are going to be any rooms that are not booked within a certain amount of time, that you try to avoid having to pay for. Because, there's some hotels that will say, okay, you can have 50 rooms blocked off, but if you don't hit the 50, then we're going to have to charge you for those said rooms that weren't booked. I believe that's called an attrition fee. Could be making that one up. But it's, when you're setting up these contracts to do the booking or setting the block of rooms, just make sure you read the fine print. It's also to make sure that it's not just one person reading the contract. Make sure your GCD or even the Province Executive Council looks at it, because we don't want anything that happens in the hotel, whether it be not enough booked rooms so you have to get extra costs, or if something happens to break or something, it's not coming back on Kappa Psi. Just make sure you read the contract well. Try to avoid the fees for not booking enough, and also make sure you realize that if there is something going on that weekend and it just happened to be, your set date happens to be a home baseball game, you want to get there as soon as possible to set those room blocks to make sure that your people at Kappa Psi can get the rooms and not, the people coming to watch the baseball game. Also think about when you're setting up hotel blocks that it's within a decent distance to where you're having all the business meetings. We happen to have a hotel that was within walking distance of our campus. In fact, it was actually on the campus. But if you do have a hotel that you block off and it's, there's a little ways that's a little bit outside the walking distance range, see if you can have shuttles. Like, see if the hotel will provide the shuttles, and make sure you establish the pickup and drop-off points, and that the actual shuttles follow those pickup and drop-off points. There was an issue where the pickup point in Oxford was one place, and then the drop-off point was on another, and I believe those got flip-flopped. So there was a lot, some confusion, but it was just on one side of the corner of the block, and then the other was the other side. So just make sure the company that's doing the shuttles actually pays attention and picks up and drops off at the spots they're supposed to. If you happen to live in a larger city, I know Oxford only had one Uber person at one point, and now we have no Uber person. There are different methods of getting around besides taxis. Make sure that people know which are the safest, because that's, we want the province assembly to be an enjoyable and safe and happy experience for them. So just let them know if Uber's the best thing in town, that, use Uber, send out those free rides, but if there's a cheaper transportation, then make that known moving forward.
Okay, and we have a couple of questions here. Jeffrey wants to know, will these slides be sent out later? And yes, I can do that. I have access to all your emails from when you registered, so that can definitely be done. And Angelique wants to know, how far in advance would you say you need to pick a date to book the hotel? And personally, I would say as soon as you know the date, because depending on how busy and big your city is, hotel rooms can book up really, really quickly. And I know personally for the province that my chapter is planning, we had a block set aside for us. We're hosting in October. We had a block set aside for us this past October, so a year in advance. But when I helped host, it was a bit of a crunch deadline. We did ours 6 months in advance. How early did you book your hotel rooms, Todd?
That was 4 months. It was
4 months in
August.
advance? Okay, so I think it really depends on the situation, how big your city is. There's a lot of factors. Angelique, let me know if that answered your question. Okay, and then next, we're going to move onto meeting rooms. So when you have a province meeting, you need a place to hold your general sessions, and you have options. If you have a lot of guests staying in a hotel, it may be easiest to use the hotel meeting rooms. If there's a convention center nearby that is affordable and can hold everyone that's coming, maybe that's your best option. Usually, I think the cheapest option is a campus location. I know for the University of Pittsburgh, they don't charge you to use the meeting room, so that's one less thing you have to pay for. However, you have to keep in mind that you want to schedule early, because these meeting rooms, especially school meeting rooms, fill up very, very quickly. And you also want to make sure it has all the technology that you need. So you want to be able to have a projector, computers, cables. Our microphone's going to cost extra. Those are things that you need to take into consideration. And you also want to take into consideration, will you have workshops, a round table, any extra sort of special events that will need another room? So you want to take those into account as well. Oh, we skipped one. Sorry, Todd. Go ahead.
All right, let's talk about program committee. So a little bit, it's playing off of what she actually just spoke of. Your business meetings are are typically set up, if you do it at a school, it'll be like a classroom setting. So, most people have their executive council at the very front facing what will be the delegates of the province. Another thing is you got to make sure that you do have brothers at the doors to verify members are entering. And one big aspect of confirming that your audio and visual equipment are available and working. There was a time when at our chapter that some things didn't work out. The speaker stopped working, or the computer that's closest to the executive council didn't connect to the projector. Little things like that need to be the kinks worked out prior to. Sometimes you just are told they're working and you get there that day and they don't. Make sure the agenda for it, like our SATRAP and Vice SATRAP are very good at Gulf Coast to making sure the agenda is completed ahead of time, and it sort of follows the same guide as past assemblies that we've had. We confirmed the spaces that we had for, our CE was in a room, just making sure you have all the rooms that you need and all the small conference rooms available with keys, because sometimes it's locked on the weekends. Just making sure you have that set in stone and have the appropriate ways to get into them. And then make sure that your Saturday night banquet, we have a banquet. Some provinces may not have this, but that's our big event. Make sure that everything is flowing, and that when the banquet happens, that everything lines up. Speaking about the caterers and the important speakers that might have to speak. Sorry, threw me off when she skipped. We can go on. Yeah, we could talk about my technical difficulties. So I gave a little bit of information about, make sure things work. We got there the Friday night, try to make sure everything was up to par at our campus, our big room that we have most of our classes. And it seemed like the information should have been told towards me, but it wasn't. But the computer that was on the stage, supposed to be connected to the projector, was no longer connecting anymore. So I had to sit in the back on a laptop and go through the slides and make sure that if something was going up, that it was being on the correct page or on the correct slide. So just making sure that things are supposed to be working and are either fixed prior to is key. And if that happens to, not work, don't let it get to you. There are things that will not work out in your assembly. Most everyone that's attending will not know this. Just act like it was supposed to happen that way either way. Okay.
Okay, next I'm just going to talk a little bit about my favorite thing, food, more specifically the food offered at province meetings. So you see a list here, food options. It really depends, once again, on the province and really the culture of the province. Some province meetings I've been to, it's formal, business, professional, both meetings. Some provinces, business professional one meeting and casual the next. So at a casual Southeast province meeting, I was lucky enough to have dinner on the beach. So, but a lot of other province meetings I go to, it's a banquet in a hotel, on a boat. So it really depends where the banquet is being held. It depends on your budget as well, because a lot of provinces I've been to, they usually only offer dinner on Saturday night. Some provinces I have been to, they offer dinner both nights, and breakfast and lunch, and refreshments like coffee and tea. So once again, it depends on your budget, and it depends on what you want to do, because you have the power here, so speaking, you have the creativity to make this province being the way you want it to be.
All right. Entertainment committee. So each province is a little different. You know, some provinces might have Friday events and Saturday events, social events. Make sure, just like setting up a hotel, setting up your venues for your business meetings, that you contact these people or these venues for your social events well in advance, and realize that any extra stuff that you do might introduce more costs to your budget that you weren't expecting. If it happens to be at the hotel that you have all the guests staying at, try to make it, you know, incorporated into your contract. You can also use this as a budgeting tool of saying, okay, so we have X amount of people staying at your hotel. Can we get this for free or X amount % off? They'll be willing to listen to you if you have enough people staying there. Also, if you happen to have events at other venues besides like a hotel or something, make sure you sign a contract or something stating that pretty much that the risk is not going to be solely on Kappa Psi. That's the main thing we're going to be looking at for that. And then think about your risk management, social media policy while doing all of these entertainment social events. Also, if there is any unofficial events, please do not list them on the program. And that's, you know, you're looking at things that could be a get-together on a certain alumni. Just keep it off the program so we don't have to deal with that being an issue on risk management.
And speaking of risk management, everyone's favorite topic, right? But I'm not going to read this to you guys. I know you can read, and I will refer you to the handout, the Province Assembly Planning Guide, which goes into further detail on these points. But I'm just going to recommend that the province co-chairs sit down with the province executive committee and go through every single possible scenario of what can go wrong. And you want to think of ways to prevent these scenarios. You want to think of ways of what to do if these do happen. And something I just would like to say, you definitely want to follow risk management, because risk management is in place to protect the fraternity. And, you know, once you join the fraternity, you're not an island anymore. Anything you do reflects on us the way anything we do reflects on you. So if you do something great, you win an award, you win a national position, that makes Kappa Psi look good. But if you do something bad, it shows Kappa Psi in a bad light. And we definitely want to make sure that our reputation is upheld. Todd, would you like to speak about the budget?
Yes, that's the unmute button is still becoming an issue with me. So we all know that people get angry most when you're dealing with their prescription medication and their money. Well, how about having a assembly meeting where you're dealing with people dealing with prescriptions and money? So let's talk about budget. First of all, you need to figure out who actually sets this budget. Sometimes a host chapter is given a semi-detailed list of budgets from the past assemblies. Other provinces might have a set budget that you can't go beyond in price. Others might say, we want it to be within this range. So just talk it out with your province executive council and see what's going to be the best for your province. think about the timing of the event. Also, remind yourself time and time again that not every city is the same. Oxford, Mississippi is going to be a little pricey on some items and a little bit cheaper on some items, where Nashville might be cheaper on other parts of the budget, where other cities, might, it's just going to fluctuate. Should you expect any other large crowds to be in town? This is the same thing going back to the hotels. We want to make sure that if we're booking a weekend and we're expecting a lot of people other than Kappa Psi Brothers to be in town, that the prices are going to go up. If you have so many people out on the town, you're going to expect longer wait times for food, and then probably catering events are going to be inflated in prices as well. So look for a budget range. Try not to set in stone the budget too far in advance, especially if you don't have all your fixed costs and then your variable costs. You want to make sure that you're not setting yourself up for failure and coming into where the chapter is going to be owing more money than what they're coming in with registration fees. Setting prices in advance from catering companies and venues can help lower costs. Sometimes the farther out you say, I need this place for Friday night, they'll be like, okay, well, since we don't have anybody actually booking it right then, we can say, okay, we'll give you a discount on our normal thing, because that clears out our schedule trying to find something, someone to take over the area, later down the line. And then ask your chapter brothers and even your professors if they know anyone. Like, I know my GCD is able to contact a local restaurant and get catering items on a cheaper price than if I called and said, oh, can I get, this amount of stuff by this day? And then as always, sponsorship. You can always see that a Walgreens or a CVS will jump over the moon to be able to have a sponsored event where they can be seen and get recognition. So, if you're going to do budgeting items and you can see something where, oh, well, maybe someone will sponsor this luncheon, make it known and see if they'll help you with because that'll actually help lower the budget for everybody else. On budget meetings, there we go. This is taken from the Province Assembly Planning Guide. They say that 6 to 2 years prior to have, try to get goals set. Every province is going to be a little different. Every area location is going to be different. I said I got my hotel blocked off 4 months in advance. It's not in that timeline of 6 to 2 years prior, but it worked for our setting. Set goals, set timelines to where you need to, have all your fixed costs, like your entertainment, banquet room, social event, facility charges, the DJ, your meeting rooms, security if applicable, your hotel setup or banquet room setup, anything that these charges, no matter how many people you're going to have at it, they're going to be the set cost. So make sure you get your fixed costs set in. Another thing is look at your variable costs. Catering is a variable cost. Having X amount of food, say 100 people, it's going to be this amount per person. Having 150 people, it's going to be this amount. It should be a little bit less. Just notice that the more you add into, make sure you put it in, whether it's a fixed cost or a variable cost, and that will help determine the final budget and final registration fee, per person. And then always remember, there's a good idea in going a little bit over, like 10%, just so if there's anything that does come up, that you're able to actually pay for it. budget meetings continued. Your registration fees, for those that have to pay, should cover all the expenses that you have. Make sure that your business meeting, your food, all the social activities are paid for. It is not a good idea to get all your registration fees and it not be enough to cover your, all the events that you have planned. So budgeting is probably one of the key ways in making sure that your chapter is not going to go in the hole because they're having to put up more money to fill in stuff that you didn't take into account. Can you think of anything else, Karen, on budgeting?
Nope, you covered it.
Cool.
So next, you can thank Grand Vice Regent Robert Mancini for this slide. So I'm going to pull up a poll for each of these, and I want you all to tell me whether it's fact or fiction. So first is T-shirts are a necessary profit favor. Fact or fiction? I see 3% say fact. Okay, I'm just going to keep the poll open for a couple more seconds. All right, so we have 86% say fiction and 14% say fact. And speaking of a collegiate perspective, I know I like Province swag personally, and I like Province t-shirts. However, just keep in mind that everyone else also likes Province t-shirts, and probably a million other people have Province t-shirts. I have 30 Province t-shirts right now. It is a burden. So keep in mind that you don't have to do t-shirts. I've seen chapters do it as an add-on. So there's your flat registration fee, and then you pay $10 to get a t-shirt. That's a great fundraiser for your chapter. And there's a lot of other options for favors too. Umbrellas, mugs, pens, you name it, you put Kappa sign it, you can make it a favor. All right, next I will launch the next poll. You need to one-up the chapter who hosted the previous assembly meeting in your province. Fact or fiction? Ooh, this is divided.
People being truthful. When I was definitely setting up the province assembly, I was in my mind trying to see, okay, just what can we do to improve, or what can we do to? It's always a little something. All
right, so I'm going to close the poll. 67% fiction, 33% say fact. So when you're planning a province meeting, of course you want to look back and go, okay, so this chapter did this. This may not have been the best idea. But don't go overboard trying to overdo the last chapter who hosted. Don't go, wow, well, they had their province meeting at this fancy hotel. Well, we're going to have it at the aquarium, and just completely screw up your entire budget. You don't want to put yourself into the hole trying to outdo anyone. Because remember, really the best part about province meetings is coming together with everyone else and having that flow and communication of ideas. So remember, really, no matter where you are, you're going to have fun because you're with your brothers. And that's all that really matters. And next, I'm going to launch the last poll. You need $10,000 in your chapter bank account to be able to host a province meeting. Fact or fiction? Okay, 85% voted. 87. All right, I'm going to close the poll now. So 76% say fiction and 24% say fact. So to reiterate, You should not be losing money over a province meeting. The registration fee should be able to cover all of the costs that you have to spend. And if you work it out timeline-wise, you might not even have to touch any money in your chapter bank account. I know when I helped host province, we looked at the deadline at when the hotel want the money by. We closed late registration a few days before in order to get the money from the PayPal account, and then we just wrote the hotel a check, and we didn't have to touch our bank account at all. So definitely keep that in mind. Oop. And here is our contact information. We're going to go into questions. I see there's a few and a hand raised right now, but this is our contact information for me and Todd. You're always, always, always welcome to Facebook us, email us, call or text me. I'm always open to answering questions and helping people out. And if I don't know the answer to the question, I will find out for you. All right. Oops. Next, let's go into questions. I have a few here. So I see, okay, I see a question from Jeffrey. I have a question regarding budget and risk management. Okay, Jeffrey, I'm going to go and unmute you so you can answer the question. Give me one, so we can answer the question. So give me 1 second to find you on the list of attendees. All right, Jeffrey, you're unmuted. What's your question?
Can you hear me?
Kind of. There's some feedback, but go ahead.
Okay, so regarding to budget and risk management, for budget, we're planning to save money on transportation by having brothers transport other brothers when they get in.
Mm-hmm.
And for the risk management part, do we need a waiver or anything for them to sign for that?
I don't think we had a waiver for ours. Did you have a waiver for yours, Todd, for your province meeting?
No, we did not. But most of the transportation we had, thankfully, Brian Reeser was key on getting, certain people to and fro. I don't know the answer to that question.
About the waiver, is it okay if I get back to you, Jeffrey? I don't think I've had a province meeting where I had to sign a waiver before, but I can explore that a little bit more for you. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Of course, thank you. All right, we have another question. Okay, from Karen. What happens when registration doesn't cover everything? All right, let me find you, Karen. I'll meet you and we can kind of talk it through. It's supposed to, of course, but in a perfect world it would. But unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. I know it didn't happen to us. But Todd, have you had experience with this? Because I know I have seen like some province budgets where they were in the red, and I don't think there's really anything you can do to recoup the costs besides fundraising. What do you think, Todd?
Yeah, that's if there's something that you either forgot on the budget that already had to be paid for, and just wasn't put in there for the registration fees to cover. Unfortunately, I think just doing some hardcore fundraising is about the only option, especially after the fact.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So the issue here is that registration set at $80 nearly covers food. And I know that you said T-shirts, that we don't have to do, but that there's also the transportation part. And then there's the social part, because my chapter's in Las Vegas. So that sort of explains a lot.
Yeah, that does explain a lot. Okay, and you said the $80 is registration now, that only covers food. So you're looking...
I'm trying to get it to cover food.
Yeah.
But right now the contract is set at a point where it won't cover food, and I'm trying to negotiate it to cover food, at least.
Okay. Have you discussed this with your province e-board? Because, I'm not from an area that, where stuff is that expensive. So I I don't really have any experience with that kind of situation.
Yeah, so they actually capped us at 80.
Okay.
So now it's like, okay, it's coming out of pocket, and it doesn't matter how much we fundraise, really. So it's really difficult, and I don't know that anyone can provide a solution for us.
Well, that puts a lot of, that's just, that's too much burden on the chapter for setting a cap, especially in an area that does not, food is expensive, places to hold events are expensive.
Yeah, so if anyone has any solutions, I'd appreciate it. But we're trying.
Yeah.
Okay. Someone actually just said have brothers do the catering. I don't know if that's entirely kosher.
It's not allowed for hotels.
Yeah.
There's liability issues for food poisoning.
And then someone else said, has your contract already been signed? Maybe another venue might be a better option. Did you? I think you did say you signed the contract already.
No, we haven't signed anything
haven't?
yet. The contract they're giving me is setting food at like $130 per person.
Oh wow.
And registration is like capped at 80. So I'm really trying to like ask for everything to be cut out, and it's like literally like just give me a protein and a starch for dinner. And I'm just having issues going back and forth with them just to get it down to like even 75.
How many meals is this covering? Is it just one meal?
This is breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Okay. And this is all happening at a hotel?
Yeah, it's all happening at a hotel, and this is even an off-strip hotel. For an on-strip hotel, that's way out of budget, and that's at like $60,000. And I know that in the previous years, when we've hosted it, it was at Tropicana, and we went well over budget. And I think at that point I've heard that they weren't able to pay for dinner.
That's tough. So you said that's covering, can you cut out like all the other meals besides dinner, or will the food and beverage minimum not let you do that?
I'm trying to get the food and beverage minimum lowered, and the hotel we're working at it sounds like our best option because they say that they're flexible, but in terms of the contract, it doesn't seem flexible yet. I'm trying to get the contract there.
Okay.
So it's still like a work in progress.
Okay. You know, if anyone has any solutions, I do see someone said that I'd look into other venues, which you mentioned can be difficult, but I can try ask around and see what we can do and follow up on that. And then someone else said here, Jeffrey, I'm having a similar problem here in Hawaii where I won't be able to cover everything based off registration. And then someone else, Adriana, said, for the girl asking the question now, I know we have been accountable for our own breakfast and lunch at multiple provinces before.
So out of pocket.
Yeah. You know what? Let me ask around and send you a follow-up email. Is that okay, Karen?
Yeah, that works. Thank you, Karen.
Okay, great. And then let's see, we have a couple other comments here. Jonathan says, you may want to mention the planning guide as layout examples of budgeting. So if you look at the handout that we have here, the last like 5 pages, really, really thorough, great examples of budgeting if you need help with that. Jordan says, another comment or consideration regarding the grad brother registration fee. We charge $10 in Atlantic Province, and that money goes to our grad activities committee to plan events for grads and collegiate brother networking and their collegiate brothers in their final year for networking. So that's a really cool thing. Thank you, Jordan. We have another comment here. Waivers are not allowed by our insurance carrier. So I think it was Jeffrey that asked that question. All right, and then let's see. Jenna commented, a province I went to gave people brown bag breakfast before to keep costs lowered, and the brown bag breakfast had donated food items. Thank you for your comment, Jenna. Okay, and then any other questions or comments for us? Oh, I see a couple of hands raised, it looks like. Okay. Okay, Rick, I'm going to unmute you in a second so you can speak. Give me 1 second. Okay, Rick?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hey, so I was just wondering about continuing education. Is that required?
It's
Do we have
not
to pay for that? How does
It's
that go?
not required. It is super nice to, especially for grads, because grads can write like the hotel and transportation and stuff on their taxes, and it's an incentive to keep our grad brothers involved, but it's not a requirement.
Okay, because I know it has to be approved by ACPE,
Yeah.
I think it is, and I don't know if that costs money for it to be approved and all that.
I believe it does cost money. Todd, do you?
Yeah, it does.
It
That's
does?
what
Okay.
we used our fees for the grad brothers. They were a little bit higher than the collegiate brothers, but that incorporated the fee that would cost for. Of course, you're looking at I think it's per person that it costs, and you're looking at probably $150 to $300 for a CE to be approved and
Yeah,
paid
and
for.
Jordan says it depends on the school or organization that does the accreditation too.
Yeah.
Great, thank you guys.
All right, thank you. All right, and then I think I saw one more hand up. Oh, I guess not. Okay, and then a couple more comments here. Karen, Chris Miller says, you want to involve the province supervisors. They're a great resource. Thank you for that, Chris. And does anyone have any other comments or questions or anything like that? Okay, well, thank you so much, guys, for taking the time to come watch our webinar. I know, some things were a little wonky because as far as I know, this is the first webinar Kappa Psi has done, and we're still getting used to GoToWebinar. But thank you so much for attending, and in an hour, GoToWebinar will send you a follow-up email with a link for a survey asking, what did we do right, what did we do wrong, what should we do in the future. So please, 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 feel free to be brutally honest because those are completely anonymous. And if no one else has any comments, I guess we'll call it a night. Anything else for you to say, Todd?
No, I'm good. Thanks for enduring listening to us.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. And remember, you can always contact us with any comments, questions, or concerns. And I'm going to send out that email to all the participants so that you have our contact information in that PowerPoint, okay? All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thank y'all.